All right, shalom, shalom to the nation of Israel, shalom. This is your brother Kazaki out of Great Millstone, New Orleans branch, coming to you with another lesson through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shema Shah. All right. And prior to getting started, we would like to give all infinite honor and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Harakah Kadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles at Great Millstone who rule and teach well. Peace, blessings, and salutations be to the hopeful elect scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, all right? And the title of today's lesson is going to be a difference maker, okay? Be a difference maker, man. Okay, so, you know, we have a few aspects of what being a difference maker is, you know, and we're going to use some analogies here, you know, using things within the world, same thing as, you know, Yahweh Shema Shah used the things that are around them to make basically a parabolic or metaphorical reference, you know, to get into one point, okay? And we're going to start off with Sirach 38:24, okay? And it says, the wisdom of a learned man cometh by opportunity of leisure, and he that have little business shall become wise, okay? So, you know, like the scripture said, man, you know, the wisdom of a learned man is going to come by opportunity of leisure, basically free time. Okay, so you have to basically, you know, be able to evaluate your life, look at the things that you're doing and say, hey, what can I basically, you know, take away so I could gain more time to give to the Lord, okay? You know, and obviously, you know, you have to be called for this thing, right? Let's say, you know, spiritually, it's like playing ball or whatever, right? We use basketball analogy / reference, okay? You know, you got to be called in order to even come to the play the game, okay? And then coming to play the game, you have tryouts. And then after you have tryouts, if you do well enough, you make the team, okay? And if you are a very good player, you have the potential to start. Or if you're not as great, you know what I'm saying, you'll be on the bench and you'll be used as a reserve, and or, you know, you can still work your way into a starting position. All right, you know, so like I said, you know, the scriptures say, you know, wisdom coming by opportunity of leisure, right? We have to have little business in order to get the Lord's work done. You know, you can't work, you know, 2-3 jobs in the truth, and we know, you know, that goes without saying, but it's just going to basically, you know, drown out the word, okay? So, you know, we basically, you know, want to have what we call a positive impact, okay? You know, that's being a difference maker, right? So wherever you plug into or within the ministry, you know, work on your strengths and then build from off your strengths, okay? And you can work on areas where you're not as great at, you know, if the Lord allows you to have that other talent to move forward in different areas, you know what I'm saying? But do what you do and do it well is the point, okay? Let's get another precept, okay? This is Matthew 5:14. It says, ye are the light of the world, okay? And that's what we are, man. You know, we receive this wisdom, you know, that's the truth from on high, okay? And over a dispensation of time, you know, our light begins to show. It begins to shine, okay, to the world, man. You know, well, even people could see that, you know, that you're different, you know, than most people. Okay, you're not the same, you don't think the same, you don't act the same, you don't walk the same, you know, as other people, man. Now, you're not trying to be, you know, blatantly, you know, just, you know, obvious with things, but it's just the way you move. It's the spirit of the man that attracts people to you, okay? And it says, a city that is set on a hill cannot be hid, right? You know what I'm saying? Going into basically the elect of the nation of Israel, okay? You know, the Israelites, you know what I'm saying? And the men that's given this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding is going to be like a beacon of light, man. You know what I'm saying? It's going to, you know, because it says the world is dark. And if you have light, a light tower, right? A shining bright light, you know, it's going to be what? It's going to be noticeable, okay? It's going to stick out like you know, a green hat with an orange mill, so to speak. Just paraphrasing. Verse 15, it says, neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel, right? So if you got this wisdom, man, you need to come forward, right? You need to bring out the scriptures. You know, the elders always say, hey, look, bring out what you know, man, you know, and build with it on there. A lot of brothers started off with 2, 3, 4, you know, 5 or 6 precepts, you know, and just grind it, you know, on those, and just kept building to those precepts, okay? And then through, you know, through the Spirit, you know, the Lord, you know, basically did the rest of the work, okay? So I'm gonna read that again. It says, neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel, right? You know what I'm saying? So you basically hiding your talent, okay? You want to be impactful, right? You want to be a difference maker. You can't hide your talent, man, right? It's like having somebody who can hoop, but they just don't want to hoop, you know? They or they don't want to play ball for whatever means, but they're really good at it, you know? You know, it just doesn't, you know, doesn't add up, doesn't make sense, right? It says, but on a candlestick, and give it light unto all that are in the house, right? So that's what we do. We give out this knowledge, this wisdom and understanding. We give out the truth to the people, okay? That's, you know, that's what we basically been employed to do, right? We've been given spiritual talents on a certain level in which Yahweh Bashim Shai would use in order to get his point across, to get his word out there. You know what I'm saying? So that the people at the end of the day, they don't have a leg to stand on. Okay, they're just going to be judged accordingly. The Lord's not going to have to come back and sit down with you and tell you all the things you did wrong. He sent the prophets out there to do that. Okay. Verse 16, it says, let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works. Okay. So the people are actually able to see your good works, man. You know. All right. So you go into what? You know, basically the highways and hedges. Okay. You know, the altar, right? You're presenting your body as a living sacrifice, and you're offering up, you know, basically offerings to the Lord, man. You know, telling them, you know, hey, look, you looking to repent. You're looking to receive mercy. Okay. All of these are the kind of like the prerequisites to being what? Okay. Being a difference maker. Okay. Now, once you've joined that side, right? You're a part of the team. Okay. You got to put in work. Okay. So you can gain access, you know, more access to the Spirit, so that you can, you know, teach other people when the time comes for you. Okay. And it says, and glorify your Father which is in heaven. All right. So let me get another precept real quick. And this is going back into what I started off with earlier, you know, talking about, hey, you basically, you know, you got to get the, you got to get the invite to basically hoop, man. You want to go out there, you want to go show off your talents and stuff like that, you got to get this invite. Okay. This is Isaiah 6:8. Also, I heard the voice of the Lord saying, whom shall I send? Right. And it says, and who will go for us? Then said I, here am I, send me. Okay. And that's, you know, Isaiah, you know, basically responding, you know, to the Father, man. Like, he's telling them, hey, look, you know, who's going to go forth, right? And you know, preach my word, you know, do the works, do the will of Yahweh Shemel Shai. And he responded and told him, you know, look, I'm here, you know, send me, you know, put me in the game. You know, I'm ready to play. you know, I could do it. Okay. You know, he was fully convinced, you know, fully persuaded that he had the talent to be able to perform what the Lord needed him to perform. Okay. And he did just that. Okay. So let's go to another precept. Got it written down here. Let's see here. This is Proverbs 3:27. It says, withhold not good from them to whom it is due, when it is in the power of thine hand to do it. Okay. So, you know, we can't, you know, let's say you coming, you know, you're coming off the bench, and you're basically, you know, putting the game to be a difference maker, but, you know, you holding back, or you're not as responsive, or you're not, you know, sharp on a sword. You know, you're trying to cut people with a dull blade, right? You know, spiritually, you know what I'm saying? You know, basically, you know, long story short, don't be that guy, man. You know, we've been, you know, sent forth to be what? Fishers of men. We've been sent forth to bring to the world repentance. Okay, to bring forth the world Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. And I'll say the world, I mean, you know, the nation of Israel, chiefly the you know, the hopeful elect, okay, the remnant. Okay. And we do this by presenting our life a living sacrifice. But we also, you know, basically, you know, want to watch out for that fine line between the guy that's asking a question and being sincere, and a guy that's not asking, that is also asking a question, but he's being insincere, you know. So we want to make sure that we're doing, you know, those things, right, in righteousness, right. We're being, we're using discretion to say, hey, look, this brother's, he just don't know. He's being sincere. He don't know. You know, let's explain it to him, or vice versa. Or he's, you know, basically scoffing. You know, let him have it, type of thing. Okay. And this goes into being what, you know, being that difference maker. Now, you know, one thing about being a difference maker, you know, let's say, for instance, just a hypothetical situation, you may be running late for camp or whatever the case may be. Okay. You know, when you ain't there, people gonna notice that, you know, you're not there. You know what I'm saying? To the, you know, and this is, you know, from a spiritual perspective, like that, and the brother so-and-so's not here, you know, because what? We're all connected, right? You spend so much time building a relationship and a rapport with a brother, you're gonna say, okay, I noticed something's off because so-and-so isn't here. Now, it's us as a body, you know, and as a unit, is to be able to what? Basically kind of pick up, you know, where we left off, you know, or that brother slack, so to speak, you know, but his presence not there. And that's just a part of, you know, all of us being what? You know, being a part of one body, but different members, right? So that's a kind of being impactful, okay, in a sense, okay. Now we know also underneath being a difference maker, you know, comes obedience, right? It comes influence, right? Like I said earlier, we're fishers of men, okay. So, you know, you might, you know, meet somebody, or somebody might just bump into you and have a conversation of some sort that has to do, you know, that could lead into doing something that insinuates the word or the spirit, you know, and you have to have that discretion in order to be able to deal build potentially, you know, with that person. You might not say anything at all. You might say a little something, just to bird feed them to see what a person's mindset is, you know, and depending on the answers from there, you move forward accordingly. Okay. So let's get another precept in the spirit. Let's go to, let's see, Galatians 6 and 9. All right, this is Galatians 6 and verse 9. It says, and let us not be weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not. Right? So we're constantly what? You know, we're constantly at work. You know what I'm saying? We're constantly doing the work. Okay? So we can't be weary in well-doing, right? We can't be tired, you know, going out there to the highways and hedges. You know, we can't take breaks. You know what I'm saying? We're not going to go in there and say, hey, look, you know, I'm coming for this seasonal time because it's too hot at this time, or it's too cold at that time, right? Or I got this going on in my life, so I just don't have the time, or I got that going on and I just, you know, can't make the time, you know. No, you know what I'm saying? In the spirit, we have to make sure that we move forward accordingly and constantly basically recharge our batteries, man. We don't really, in this truth, you don't get any days off, man. Honestly, you know what I'm saying? You may get time off, but you don't get any days off. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, that's the goal without saying, not saying that a brother can't, you know, take his time. But, you know, that's, you know, like the view and the perspective, you know, that I have, that the truth is just constant. You know what I'm saying? It's just, it's a snowball effect. It constantly grows. It's constantly something going on, prophetically, or something that you could be putting out to be edifying or exhorting, man. Okay. You know, like I said, you're a part of that team, and you're fainting while trying to do the works of the Lord. Okay. That could be hurtful in a negative way, impactful way to the team, man. Okay. You have this thing where you might have this thing where, man, look, you know, I don't want to be here, or whatever, you know, which is nothing but your demons, you know, whatever. You're tired. Everyone's, you know, tired. You know what I'm saying? So to speak. You know what I'm saying? But we gotta pray that the Lord put the spirit on us to keep pushing and keep moving. Right? Verse 10, it says, as we have therefore opportunity, let us do good unto all men, especially unto them who are of the household of faith. So, right, you got a body of brothers within the truth, right? All the brothers have different talents, right? The scriptures speak on charity, okay? And basically just being a brother, okay? You know, those are things that you have to know, and you have to implement as you move forward in the truth, right? And you know, these are just prerequisites and attributes, a part of being an impactful player, to say, okay, I can take this guy over the course of time, and I know he knows how to deal with a brother. I could take this time over the course of time, and I know I could have him basically within my counsel. Okay, I'm gonna put this guy, he's a strong reader. I'm gonna take this guy, he's got a history down pat. Or the next guy, you know what I'm saying, he'll just rapid fire pull precepts. Everything that I need, he's gonna be there to do it. You know what I'm saying? These are ways in which you could come into the game and impact within a positive way. You know, build off of whatever your strength is in the spirit, and then from there you could build on weaknesses. Okay, pray to the Lord that he increases your oil, okay, and their knowledge, their wisdom and understanding. Okay. All right, let's get another precept. We're not gonna have it too much longer. All right, let's go get this one here. This is Romans 14 and verse 7. It says, for none of us liveth to himself, and no man dieth to himself. It says, for whether we live unto the Lord, and whether we die unto the Lord. Whether we live therefore or die, we are the Lord's, man. Okay? And that goes off to what? You know, being a spiritual man. You know, we live, and our purpose in our day-to-day walk is always toward Yahweh Shema Shai. Okay? You know, we walk in the spirit, you know, basically not in flesh. We do, you know, basically stay away from things that are carnal or detrimental to the spirit. Okay? You know, you got to come into the game, okay, and be able to basically make, you know, whatever it is that your position is required to do. You know, you got to be able to play and be skilled at that position very well. Okay. Now, like it says, we live and we die for Yahweh Shema Shai. So all our works in which we do is for the Lord, man. So we make sure we implement these things as we go. Okay. So, you know, let's say a guy's running point. He's basically got to be, you know, basically a floor general. Okay. That's what he's got to do. You know, if a guy's playing shooting guard, he's spotting up, you know, ready for what? Ready to take the shot, or, you know, break the defense down, you know, maybe get a drive into the lane where he can get a kick out or finish at the rim or whatever the case may be. You know what I'm saying? And so on and so forth. Center, he plays the center position. Okay, he's there for rebounds, putbacks, whatever. You know what I'm saying? So whatever it is that you're there for, you know, be impactful in that nature, right? Play the realm and master the realm of the things that you're good at, you know, so you have the potential later on to be something better, you know what I'm saying, so to speak, okay, or something more versatile, okay. All right, let's get maybe like one or two more precepts. Let's get Proverbs. This is Proverbs 6 and verse 6. It says, go to the ant, thou sluggard, consider her ways, be wise. Okay, we know the ant is always what? It's constantly, you know, at work. You know what I'm saying? You want to see improvement in your game, you got to constantly work at it. You know what I'm saying? So the next time you show up at practice, or you show up to the altar, right? Or you show up to will be game time, right? You show up, the guys can see, hey, this guy's improved his game. Okay, he once wasn't as great as precepting or as powerful as a reader, or you know, he's been working on whatever, man, his history. He's been improving as far as being a brother, whatever the case may be. It could be anything, you know. I could see that this guy or this brother, you know, has put in the legwork to make changes to himself. Okay. And that's what we have. That's what we're doing. That's what we need to see. Right. So when you are beginning to start, you are beginning to play, the brothers have already, you know, gauged your spirit to say, okay, this brother, if I plug him into this position, he's going to go and fit in well and do all the things that is required or need to be done within his position. I'm comfortable with putting him there. Okay. Whatever the case may be. All right. And it says, which having no guide, overseer, or ruler, provided her meat in the summer, and gathered her food in the harvest. Right. So they know they gotta go get the food. They gotta go basically do the things that are necessary and ready for what? Winter, you know, rainy weather, you know, like I said, you know, cold months, you know, There's a time and season in which they work, and there's a time and season where they're working, but they're not working as much, right? They may be within a compound doing what needs to be done done there, okay? But the point is, you gotta constantly work in order to improve yourself, within the truth, and just looking at the ant and using it as an example, okay, and it says, yet a little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to sleep. Oh, slag it, verse 9, slag it. Proverbs 6:9, it says, how long wilt thou sleep, O sluggard? It says, when wilt thou arise out of thy sleep? Right? So when you going to get to work, man? When you going to start putting in the work? When you going to, start doing the will? Right? And even arising up out of that sleep, you know what I'm saying? You could kind of go back to a sluggish state, procrastinating a state, man. Don't be, basically don't be that guy, okay? And, improve your game, work on yourself, right? And like I said, I'm using, analogies and metaphors in sports, dealing, kind of, with the truth, okay? But, the point is basically, like I was saying, be a difference maker, man. Be an impact player, right? Be that guy, people can feel, the presence of, right? And really just ultimately, kind of goes into what, just basically being more confident within yourself, man. Because, if you don't think that you're able to do the things you need to do in order to become better, you'll basically never be better, right? So, that's pretty much it. That's all I got, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shema Shai. And, like I was saying, be a difference maker, and from a humble perspective, you know what I'm saying? A meek perspective, don't be the guy that's just trying to outshine the other guy because you feel like you got more talent, or you can be the number one guy or even the number two guy, because in its truth, even the Chiefs had at one point had to learn to basically be Indians, okay? They gotta be the guy that you can be, the brother that you can take and plug into any scenario, and he's just gonna flourish. You know what I'm saying? Now we know that brothers, are given a portion, and they usually sometimes can be plugged into just a certain scenario. Like this brother might just be, a very strong reader, preceptor, whatever the case may be. That's just what he does. Perfect that then, and make that impact, which is the betterment for the body of Yahweh Shema Shai, So, like I said, with that being said, that's all I have, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shema Shai. Lord willing, this was edifying first and foremost to the hopeful elect. And prior to getting out of here, we want to give all infinite honor and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Harakakadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles at Great Millstone who rule and teach well. Peace, blessings, and salutations be to the hopeful elect scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. All right, Kwam Yasha'Allah, Wa Baba Ball, and Shalom.